Welcome back for another session. What we're going to do in this session is look at setting up some counters. So as we drag the socks across and they collide with the shopping cart, we actually want to start incrementing a counter. So let's set up an interface for this, and to do this we're going to need to set some text boxes on the screen. So I'm just going to place this text box. Make sure you change it to classic. In this case here it's going to be dynamic. We're going to use it as an output. We need to give an instance name. So in this case we'll call it txt socks or sock. We're going to have a border around it. We need to make sure we use device fonts. We can also make it look a little bit more interesting by changing the color or looking at the font family, but at this point in time I'm quite happy to keep it the way it is. There are some other things we can do, but we will stick with the simple things at the moment, and we'll move on to make sure that we can get some numbers appearing in here. Now I'm going to need 3 of these. So there's my first one. This one here is going to actually be called txt rugby, and we need one more, which is going to be our txt shirt. Now you notice that we can actually set these one up and all the characters stay the same all the way through, so that makes life a little bit easier. So what we now want to do is set up our interface for this. Now it's about time we bring in that initialize. So we've got check position here. I'm going to now do a function call for initialize. So what we're going to do is initialize our program. And normally my initialize program is the very first function. So we're going to function initialize bracket, and what do we want to initialize? Well, one of the things we want to initialize is the check position, but we also want to set up our interface to be 0. So what we need to do is declare some variables. Now you may use arrays, etc. I only keep this simple at the moment and actually just have some new variables like var n socks or sock. That's going to be type number. Then we're going to have var n rugby, it's going to be a number, and var shirt is also going to be a number. So we can click on this and it puts all our semicolons in. What we want to do is, in our initialize, set all of them to 0. So n sock is going to be equal to 0, and rugby is going to be equal to 0. You could do it up the top where you declare and assign it, but I personally don't like those sort of things. I think it's much better if you manually do and put them in areas that make sense. So when the program runs, initialize, it sets all the variables to 0. If we want to, we can then actually assign that out to the text boxes. So txt sock.text is going to be equal to nsock.toString, where we want to change the string into, or the number into a string, and then we can do that for txt rugby. We can go, its text portion of the text box is equal to n rugby dot toString, and the last one, txt shirt dot text is equal to n shirt dot toString. Just to reiterate, it changes the number of n sock to a string, which makes it a string of char, which are characters, which is text, and then puts it into the text portion. After we've done that, then we actually check the position and make sure they're all in position. So what we should now have is, when we run the program, is zeros all appear in our text boxes, which they do. So as this slides across and it hits the shopping cart, every time it touches this shopping cart now, we want to increment that by 1. The users don't actually type in there. I can't click in there because it's dynamic, so I can't manually change it. So we've got to do it through a click and drag. To do that, we need to look at the collision test. So here we go, got socks. So this is the collision test. We know that it's socks. So what I want to do is increment my variable. So I want to increment n socks. Because that's set to 0, we can go n sock plus equals 1. So that'll increment that. Now the next thing we need to actually do when we increment it is actually trace that out to the text box. I've already got it traced, so I'll just copy this from here down into the function and run the program now. So now every time the sock touches here and I let it go, it increments to 1. And that will keep going up. Now the good thing about this is it ensures that the user can't do anything crazy. So it doesn't matter where it goes, and we need to replicate that information for all the objects. So let's quickly do that. So we're going to sort of copy this from here and underneath our trace statement. Underneath this trace statement, and once again we're going to change them all. So with this one here, it's MC shirt, so N shirt and N shirt, and this one's going to be MC rugby. So if all is working correctly, as I drop the sock on there, I get the trace got socks and it's incremented to 1. Should get rugby, it's incremented to 1. And should get shirt, and that's incremented to 1. Excellent. So at the moment our program's working correctly for the incrementing of our counters and our resetting.